Hey everybody, so today we are talking about shading with charcoal, specifically doing this practice worksheet. The reason why I like this practice worksheet is because it really breaks down each and every single section of value from dark to light so that you can very clearly see where each of them should go, and then your job after that would be to blend them together. All right, now when I saw you guys doing the practice last week, there were quite a few people that I saw that were going kind of outside of the lines of their sphere or cone and really losing the shape of that. We've been focusing on shading for a long time, and something that I really want to stress and have you guys remember is when you are shading an object, you need to be shading inside of those objects' lines. If you go outside of those objects' lines, you lose the shape. You'll lose the shading of it, and you will lose it actually looking realistic. And especially with charcoal, it'll get really messy really fast. So you want to make sure you are working small and neat. The best thing in your little bag of tricks for charcoal to work small and neat is the charcoal pencil. All right, because you're holding on to the pencil tip end, which isn't going to get your hands all black, and it's a little bit more controlled because you're working with the charcoal pencil. So for our pine cone, we're going to be working mainly with the charcoal pencil for that so that you have a bit more control over it. And then for the shading, the best for small areas is the blending stump, because again, this also has a tip to it. So this is going to be the best for blending the small areas. All right, so let's get started on the practice worksheet. So here I have a value scale from light to dark, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different shades. Okay, a lot of people that I have been seeing working on this, you're only shading in 2 or 3 shades. You want at least 5 to 6 for it to really start to pop off. All right, so the center one is the lightest, which means it's completely black. We're not going to fill that in. And then the second one is the second lightest. So for right now, just very lightly going to put a little bit in there. I'll spread it out a little more with the blending stump. Then I'm going to go to the next one and just go a little more layered for this. I'm still going very lightly. Something I want you to notice is how I'm holding the charcoal pencil. I'm not holding it straight on like this, but rather to the side and on the end. So it's not like holding a normal pencil or pen when you are writing or even drawing. All right, so my next one, I'm gonna go just slightly darker. Now we talked about how you can get the darker and the lighter shades. So for the lighter ones, you wanna add less, but you also wanna press very lightly. Varying the pressure, which is how hard or light that you're pressing, can really help with this, but also layering helps with this too. So if I layer an extra bit on top, it can make it a bit darker. All right, I'm gonna go even darker here. As I'm going towards the outside. And once again, turning my paper whenever I need to, and making sure that I'm not leaning my hand directly onto it, that my hand is a bit hovered or to the side. And notice how I am staying inside of the lines of the sphere and of each section and not going outside of them. And in turn, not making a huge mess when I'm doing that. All right, so I'm going to stop here for a moment just to blend these out and see how they blend out before I do my darker parts. So I'm going to take the blending stump, blend in this lightest area, then go to the next area. It's just going to be slightly darker than that. If you don't feel like it's any darker, you can take your your charcoal pencil, I almost said colored pencil, and just add a little more. Because remember, you want each and every single section to be slightly darker than the one before it. If any of them are the same, then that's wrong. But having these little marked off sections actually really does help with knowing where to add each shade. All right, so I'm going for my slightly darker one from there. And an even darker one. And lastly, the darkest one that I've done so far. And notice how with my blending, I'm not blending crazy like this. I'm blending each individual section. I'm trying my best to not go outside of the lines of the section, and especially outside of the lines of the circle itself, because that is how we really lose the shape. You know, if you need to pull your mask down really quickly to blow off the excess, you can do that, because that's really the way that it's done with charcoal. All right, so now I can very clearly see all of the shades, and I'm gonna go ahead in with my darkest two sections, which are this and the shadow. So for this, I'm layering more and pressing harder. Layering more, pressing harder. And since this is a bigger section, if I wanted to, I can use my loose charcoal, because it's just so much easier to color in with the loose charcoal. But I still want to stay inside the outline that's created for the shadow. Okay, I'm going to use the paintbrush for the kind of bigger section. Move that shading around a bit. Use this to fill in any excess white areas. Now, the charcoal pencil is a little more compressed. What that means is that it actually doesn't have as much dust, which makes it a bit easier to work with. Okay, and I'm just going to go back in and blend a little more of my white spaces out in the sphere itself. And there we go, I have it. It kind of looks just like the bottom one, even though the bottom one is printed. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't make too much of a mess doing this. Staying inside the lines of the section, staying inside the lines of the circle is really helpful, and making sure that you have all of the shades. You are layering and pressing harder for dark shades. You're adding a little bit and pressing lightly for the light shades. So let's get started.